So hi, everyone. I'm Holly Rosen-Fink, president and co-founder of the Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration. Tonight, we welcome you to a very special evening called Border Report, Children in Need. We'd love to know who's here. Well, I personally would love to know who's here. I know many of you, and I'm very honored to have all of you. If you could please drop your name and affiliation in the chat box, we'd love to see who's here, and all of you as well can see too. Before we get started, I want to tell you about our organization. Many of you actually on the call are involved, and I'm really glad that you're all here. WJCI is composed of over 100 individual members and clergy who are immigration activists across Westchester Jewish County, including conservative, Orthodox, Reconstructionists, Reform, and non-denominational affiliations. We welcome the stranger and protect immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers by concentrating our efforts on these key areas: advocacy, raising awareness, and partnership. Our organization exemplifies the Jewish principle of Hineni, or here I am. The Jewish responsibility to refugees stems from the story of Exodus, which at its core is a story of migration and freedom from oppression. And Carly Cabot, thank you for providing that line. She knows what I mean. Carly Cabot on this call wrote a great article in the Jewish Week. I hope you all can read it, about why we are here tonight. Children are arriving at the southern border without their parents. And this has presented a political and humanitarian challenge, one of which we're very aware of and concerned about. Tonight, you're going to hear from experts who have advice and eyewitness testimony about providing humanitarian assistance to children at the border. Each speaker will highlight concrete steps Westchester residents and all of you can take to support these children and their families, despite our geographic distance from the border. And you can do so much right from your home in Westchester or wherever you happen to be. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to welcome several local officials who are either here or have expressed support for this event and our mission. Share screen. Sorry, wait one sec. There we go. Because it's really important that we get support from our community, and we're very lucky to have it. So I really want to point out who is here. Some of these people are on the call, or some have expressed interest in this event. Representative Jamal Bowman from District 16, Representative Mondir Jones from District 17, Representative Sean Patrick Maloney from District 18, as well as their aides. We have several aides from each of those offices here. New York State Senator Shelley Mayer, New York State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins. I saw that one of her staff members is here. Westchester County Executive George Latimer, who we all know and love. Thank you so much. And we also, Westchester County Legislator Catherine Parker signed up for this event. And so did my own mayor, Lorraine Walsh. So we're very grateful for all of that support. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to my screen went a little funky.
It's still there.
I know. Oh, there we go.
And you're not there. I only see your name, by the way.
Okay. My screen went a little funky. I'm back.
There you are.
Right? Okay. My screen went a little funky. Okay. So during the presentation, please, everyone, write questions in the chat box. We'll answer them all after the presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome our moderator for the evening and a beloved WJCI member, Marty Michael, to give us insight into what is happening this evening. Marty.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. You will hear more about me and about what I've been doing a little later in the program. So we'll get right started with our speakers. The point that each speaker is going to make, in addition to giving us their individual perspective on the work they've been doing, is how we can concretely sort of boots on the ground help what's going on at the border now and what's going on through the country, which I will explain when I talk, from up here in Westchester. There's a lot we can do to help. First up is Rabbi Shoshi Levin Goldberg of Temple Israel Center of White Plains. She was ordained recently as a rabbi in May 2020, and parenthetically, I will add, she is also a cantor with a master's degree in sacred music from the Jewish Theological Seminary. Rabbi Shoshi went on a mission to the border that was organized by Hayas and Trua, and she says, just as Jews are responsible for sharing our own stories of migration, we must also make space for others to tell their stories. She will tell us about her trip after giving us a Jewish lens with which to view tonight's subject. Rabbi Levin Goldberg, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marty. As you just heard, in November 2019, I participated in a joint Hayas-Trua border delegation trip for Jewish clergy to El Paso, Texas. I'm going to speak briefly about 3 of the most eye-opening parts of our trip, and I will also provide us with a Jewish framework for our program this evening. On our trip, we visited a shelter in Mexico that was housing immigrants who were returned to Mexico after claiming asylum as they waited to be able to re-enter the country. There, we spoke with a woman who had been through many atrocities already, and her pursuers had located her at the shelter. She was terrified. We also toured the Otero Detention Center, a facility run by ICE. There, the detainees experience prison-like conditions, including solitary confinement, whether or not they have a criminal record. Last, we witnessed a group trial of 3 young men who each entered the country illegally in the several days prior. In a trial that lasted no more than 30 minutes, all 3 men were deported. I'm sharing my screen. This is a picture of the shelter in Mexico that I just spoke about, which was set up by the Mexican government to house the most vulnerable individuals who had been returned to Mexico, many of whom are families with children. This way, they didn't need to camp out on the streets like many others as they waited. As a Jewish clergy member, I chose to participate in this trip because I wanted to see with my own eyes what was happening at the border. I wanted to learn more about Hayas and Trua and the important work of these 2 organizations, to connect with other rabbis and to think together about how social justice issues like immigration are a part of our identities as spiritual leaders. And as a parent of young children, I also wanted to bear witness to what I had been following in the news, the horrifying stories of children being separated from their parents at the border. Jews are commanded to love the stranger because we were strangers in Egypt. In more recent history, too, including the history of many of our own families, mine included, Jews have known what it's like to be a stranger in a foreign land. Many sections of the Torah explore the role of outsiders in our community. One of these passages comes from our Torah reading from last week. The Torah instructs us, "There shall be one law for you and for the resident stranger. It shall be a law for all time throughout the ages. You and the stranger shall be alike before God. The same ritual and the same rule shall apply to you and to the stranger who resides among you." Our Torah teaches us that the same rules must apply for everyone who lives in a certain place, whether they are citizens or non-citizens, whether they are permanent residents or just staying there temporarily. And here, the Torah also explains why. To God, we are all the same. Our story is yours, and yours is ours. It's not enough to simply say that we've been there so we understand. We must have compassion and empathy, of course, but we also must take meaningful action when we confront injustice in our society. As the Torah teaches us, we are all God's children, and all of God's children deserve to be safe, especially the most vulnerable among us, including our littlest ones, should never have to live in fear. As rabbis at the border, the Jewish value of human dignity motivated us to connect with refugees on a personal level, albeit in very small ways, to communicate that the Jewish community will not turn a blind eye to what is going on at the border. It is our job as Jews not to stay silent. It is our responsibility to contribute, bit by bit, to the solution. I'm honored to be a part of this important program. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for going to witness. Super important. I'd now like to introduce the man who introduced me to what was going on in late 2018 at the border. I was infuriated and a little crazy, and I got on a plane and flew to Phoenix, having found Arizona Jews for Justice on Facebook, and presented myself to Eddie and said, here I am, what can I do? And he brought me into a room that had 1 billion boxes in it and said, these need to be unpacked and sorted. He'll explain that a little bit. He's my mentor and my hero. Eddie Chavez Calderon, he is a social justice activist and the campaign organizer for Arizona Jews for Justice and Ori Letzedek. He is inspired to support immigrant families as he himself walked to the United States with his mother at age 4. I see myself, he says, in every child who comes across the border today. I personally can attest to Eddie's endless energy and extraordinary connection to meeting the needs wherever they are found and however they are changing. And with that, what's happening today in Arizona, Eddie.
Shalom, shalom, friends. Thank you so much, my great friend Marty, for such a wonderful blessing introduction. It's truly an honor to meet so many beautiful mensches in the world, especially Marty. I know for a fact I have been in the struggle with her in hot degree weather, taking in family after family, busloads and busloads of people, and being able to have the opportunity to help the most vulnerable, I think is one of the greatest mitzvahs one can do. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on here in Arizona, because it's very interesting. We had a dynamic shift in the way that things were happening. Folks were getting dropped off here in the Greyhound, in the streets. And where we used to have churches who would take in a bunch of folks, and we would coordinate with those churches, right? We would coordinate, a lot of them were Latino-ran churches who had very little resources, but were the first ones to say, without a doubt, we'll take in people. They were the only, at that point, organizations that were taking in people in Phoenix. Numbers started to escalate. And then with the previous administration, shift and laws started to change. And then the dynamic of COVID hit us, which all combined pushed the churches to no longer accept people. So what did ICE do? ICE decided it was going to start dropping people off at the Greyhound bus station. So we mobilized in the Greyhound bus station, hundreds of families, hundreds of people inside, until finally the Greyhound executive said, hey, no more. So then they kicked us out. Did that stop the ICE bus from dropping people off? Absolutely not. They ended up instead dropping people off in the streets in front of the Greyhound buses. They don't let people know what's going on. They don't tell them where they are. They're still in shackles. They get shackles removed once they are escorted out. And this is in Phoenix, in plain view of everybody. And this Greyhound is in a very unique place. I timed to myself and I saw that it would take me 10 minutes driving to find the nearest place to be able to buy food. 10 minutes driving. The Greyhound is in a very industrial area of Phoenix, Arizona, which is next to the airport. It is a very busy road, and there is virtually no assistance at all to support families. But my friends, we fought and we fought and we fought. We had to get our state representatives involved. We got our state legislators, our senators. We had to push them. And I know some of you are angry right now with our senators and the way that they're moving, and trust me, so am I. But after a long time of pushing and pushing, We were able to get ICE to stop dropping off people randomly in the street. So we have a win right now, my friends. We have a win where families will no longer get dropped off. The horrificness of the dehumanizational process that puts people in the streets with no instruction, with nothing. About 2 weeks ago, I went to the Greyhound to start supporting families. I saw a man from India visibly crying. He was in the corner just crying. I went up to him and I said, "Hey, brother, I could tell by your ankle bracelet that you were just released by ICE." He did not understand a single thing I said. I pulled out my translator and I looked at him. I typed in whatever I said. "Do you speak English?" I typed it in. He said, "No." He said Punjabi. So I grabbed my phone and went on Google and translated Punjabi. And I said, "Hello, I am a friend. I'm here to help you." And he looked back at me and he said, "Please help," is what he typed in my phone. I said, "Okay, do you need to use my phone? Please call, please, your family or anything." He proceeded to call his brother in India. And I just saw this man crying, just burst out crying. He put his phone on speaker. And it was his brother telling me, thank you for helping him, and if I could assist them in helping him get on a plane. See, my friend that I had just met survived almost being murdered in India because he was a farm worker. From there, he had to survive running away from the cartel 3 times, he told me. Only to get into the United States, where he thought that for some reason he had not to fear anymore, that for some reason he was going to be able to get away from everything bad. But instead of getting greeted with support, he was greeted by a cage. My friends, that's where we are right now. We may think that because we have a shift in administration that things have shifted, but I'm here to tell you that things are unfortunately the same. The procedures are the same. Apprehensions are the same. Separations are the same. We may not be bold and prideful about how we are separating families, but our immigration system has been stagnant since I was 4 years old inside of a detention center. And I'm going to give a little pushback when I hear a lot of people say the system is broken. The immigration system is broken. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that. The immigration system is broken, right? Yes, so many hands, agreed, right? Well, I'm going to break that and say, no, it's not. The immigration system is not broken. It's actually working perfectly the way it was meant to be worked. Such a well-organized machine to disrupt and make it virtually impossible to have access to citizenship. I'm a DACA recipient right now. Years and years and years, money after money after money, and lawyers, I still don't have the access to even obtain residency. So when the people tell me that things are changed, I look at them and I see the little kids that are in a hotel room right now, about 15 minutes away from where I live, separated from their families, in a ICE-ran hotel. I look back and I think to myself, where is the change that they see? And as Rev Shoshi was saying, as Jews, we have a very unique call. More than 36 times in Torah, we're told. How do we treat a stranger? But see, my friends, in Leviticus, we're told a very different shift. We move away from just tolerating a stranger, but we move into loving a stranger, which is very different the way that I advocate for something that I love, somebody that I love. Because see, my friends, it hurts. I can feel it in my chest. Their pain is my pain. Their love is my love. Their joy is my joy. And the biggest thing that we have to get out of all of this, my friends, that our advocacy has to be consistent. As consistent as we bring in Shabbat, as consistently do we advocate for migrants? Do we advocate against the dehumanization of people? Rabbi Akiva once said that a single drop of water was able to crack a rock. Crack a rock. Consistency is key, my friends. Let us use our emotions, let us use our community to advocate for the most vulnerable communities. Thank you again to my great friend Marty and Holly for inviting me to be a part of this great program. My friends, the spark of light within each and every one of you is what keeps our communities going. Without us, there's only darkness. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, very much. You'll see in my presentation, I'm doing my presentation through photographs, and we'll show some of your work in past days. I see that Andrea has joined us. Yay, just in time. So, and I will introduce Andrea Morris-Rudnick now, who is one of the founders of Team Brownsville after I worked in Arizona. And as Eddie said, MPP went into effect before COVID hit, which meant that all of the people who were dropped, I saw it myself also, it was during the winter, on the streets of Phoenix at night with no idea where they were, no money, no idea what to do. And they were freezing. They were wearing flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts, and it was for Phoenix, it was cold, not for New York. And it was the churches that stepped up, and Temple Chai, which is the organization that supports Eddie's work, stepped in to help. So bless you all. I moved on out of Arizona once MPP went into effect and realized I needed to go to Mexico to help. Again, went on Facebook, again, like a nut, got on a plane and flew to Brownsville knowing nobody. And again, met another angel, Andrea Morris-Rudnick. She is the volunteer coordinator and one of 5 founders of Team Brownsville. These are 5 teachers. A former special education teacher who since 2018 has devoted her life to helping those crossing the border from Mexico seeking asylum in the US. I would add to that what I learned from her first was how to help people who were stuck in Mexico, first starting sleeping on the streets near the international bridge that led over to Texas, and eventually in a gigantic, horrendous camp called Matamoros, which at one point had 2,500 people living in tents on the banks of the Rio Grande River with no sanitation and no food. And we'll get more of that in my presentation. But meanwhile, Andrea, tell us what you have done, how you started, and how people can help Team Brownsville now, because I know it's been, at least on that section of the border, very much Team Brownsville's responsibility to get the camp at Matamoros emptied out once the administration changed and MPP changed. Andrea.
Hello, and just know that I am actually at the bus station right now. So if you hear background noise, and I'm also very hot and sweaty because it's about 90 degrees, and our area where we have volunteers and all our supplies is outside. So that's why. So if I were to do a panorama shot of where I was right now, you would be able to see testing area across the street from the bus station that the Department of Homeland Security is running. They are COVID testing all of the interior arrivals, people that are crossing the river and being processed through CBP are brought to a testing site across the street. People that are COVID positive are kept in a tent, and eventually they go on to a hotel or something like that, but they stay in those tents way too long. But tonight it's almost 7 o'clock, and we have gotten more interior arrivals today than we have gotten in a couple of weeks. So it ebbs and it flows. As you know, Marty, when we started with metering, and then we moved on to MPP. We moved on to having a huge encampment in Matamoros. Finally, the end of MPP came in, well, when the Biden administration began, they did end MPP, or they began how can I put that? They stated that they were ending MPP, but that they had to go through a 90-day waiting period. So I think the official end has just come, but the encampment is empty. There are no people in the encampment, but there still are many, many asylum seekers in Matamoros. They are in shelters right now. Some are living on the streets. We have been forbidden to start up another encampment, another feeding people in the area that we did before. We have been absolutely told that we cannot do that the Mexican immigration do not want that. There is another kind of informal encampment starting in Reynosa, which is about an hour from here, near McAllen. And again, many people are living on the street, on the plaza. Different efforts from churches and civic groups and individuals. Reynosa is much more dangerous. So our focus right now is here at the bus station. We are getting people crossing with exemptions from MPP, and the highest Mexico was chosen as the organization that processed Matamoros. Every crossing point has a different organization. In Reynosa, it's IRC, and I don't know about the other locations. So a lot more people have learned about HIAS. A lot of people have asked what HIAS is. I'm sure you all know what HIAS is, but HIAS is here and in Matamoros, and they are processing people Monday through Friday for Title 42 exemptions. So we're getting between 25 and 50 people a day through that exemption process.
Explain what Title 42 is.
Well, Title 42 is a rule that was apparently started in the 1940s, and it had to do with communicable diseases and preventing people from crossing borders, crossing into the United States. Donald Trump put it into place in March of 2020 because of COVID. And it basically forbade anybody from coming into the United States that wasn't a citizen or a resident. So it stopped the flow of traffic from Mexico, and it completely stopped the flow of asylum seekers. Well, here we are in June, and we're now in the Biden administration, that era, and we have high hopes, but it hasn't been lifted yet. And so we're looking for that. We're looking for a lifting of Title 42 and a new process for all the people that are waiting. We know that CBP cannot process all the thousands and thousands of people that are currently here waiting at the border. So there has to be some kind of a system that has to be developed, but we don't know what that system will be yet. But every day we're at the bus station. Team Brownsville is here. We are distributing backpacks with hygiene kits, a blanket, snack bags, food, clothing, shoes, everything and anything that someone might need on a trip across the country. We're distributing. We are also helping people understand their tickets. So we do a lot of sitting down with people, looking at their tickets, talking about where they're going to change buses. If they're going on a trip to New York, it's going to be 3 changes. And so they have to know how to do that. So we plot it out on a map and give them the time so that they can actually look at that and kind of have more of a sense of where they are going. What else do you want me to tell you about?
You lead in perfectly to what I'm going to talk about. So,
Okay.
because I'm going to talk about Grannies Respond in the bus stations across the country. So that'll be covered. What do you need down in Team Brownsville? Do you need money to buy supplies? Do you want supplies sent?
Constantly. I mean, I don't think I can flip my camera around like I can normally, but you could see my
I have
car
a
packed.
Yeah, of your stuff.
You can see my car packed right now with snacks for snack bags and clothing, children's clothing, adults clothing, shoes, underwear, things like that. I just went to the store right before I came to the bus station. So, but when I arrived, there were a number of families here, and so I just got right into that and completely forgot about the time. So until you sent me the message, I was, oh, wait a minute, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be on Zoom right now. But anyway, makes it all
You
more
made it.
real, right? So, did I miss anything, or did you want me to talk about anything in particular?
No, I think what I'm going to end up covering with photographs a lot of what you do.
Okay.
And what you do is so central in so many ways from the beginning of this horror. You're extraordinary, as are your partners. So after I speak and show the pictures of what you've been doing, which is what I'm going to do, people will ask questions, and you maybe will fill in some more with answers. Don't go away.
But one thing I do want to say, Marty, is we do not do this work alone. We cannot do this work alone, and we do not do it. So you give me a lot of credit, but I give you credit, and all of you asylum seekers as they're coming through our country. I mean, it's a lot of work. We're the welcoming committee, but you're the welcoming committee on the other side, and that's equally as hard and challenging.
We need everybody. Yep.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Andrea. And I hope you can hold on. You sound very busy, and thank you for taking time out for us. I want to introduce Marty, everybody, who's going to speak now. After a career of more than 40 years of Jewish community service, I don't know why people you can't see me, can you?
I see you. Yes, we see you.
You do see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Marty Michael has devoted her retirement to traveling the country and crossing the Mexican border to help asylum-seeking Latin America migrants survive and succeed in their new quest for safety in America and a better life for their children. Marty.
Thank you. Okay, so I need a moment to share my screen. Everyone can see that, yes? Can you see my screen?
No.
No. Uh-oh. So if I hit share screen, why is it not? Who can share?
Are you're the host?
I am one of the hosts, yeah.
Okay, then you should be able to hit it with share screen.
Yeah, I just switched it to all participants to see if that works. I need my pictures.
Okay.
Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought I would start this with a happy picture. This is after MPP ended. Someone asked what MPP is. That was the way to Mexico policy, where you could, if you were lucky, get to the port of entry and actually apply for asylum. But then under the previous administration, you were sent back to Mexico to wait for your hearing, and your hearing might be a year or two from now. That started with a encampment near the bridge, which I believe this is near the bridge, this picture. And it grew from 40 people to eventually being 2,500 people living in squalor in a horrendous camp on the banks of the Rio Grande. This is my happy picture because the guy holding the American flag is a Cuban asylum seeker who is a doctor. And he lived in the camp in Matamoros. Andrea might correct me, but I think it was for about a year. And he helped set up a small hospital as COVID hit, with the intention of helping COVID patients. Fortunately, the camp in Matamoros did not have too bad of a COVID experience. So he's very happy. He has now crossed, he's a Cuban MD. Okay, I wanted to show you from the beginning what these asylum seekers faced, and then we'll move on into the current day. But this is 2018 in Phoenix. This is in one of the church parking lots that Eddie sent me to. It's my first experience. You'll see a lot of faces blacked out, either for privacy or for safety concerns. At this church, at this drop-off, there were 2 buses that ICE dropped over 100 people. ICE is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service. The plastic bags you see are all the possessions that belonged to 100 people. So ICE took most of everything away from everybody, including their shoelaces and their belts. They didn't tell them where they were going. These people never heard of Arizona. They didn't know if they were safe, if they were being taken to another detention center. They were frightened when they got off the bus, and they had nothing. They were filthy, they were hungry. The first thing we did at the church, after the pastor spoke to them in Spanish and assured them they were at a church and they were safe, was feed them, which they were extremely grateful for. They were not getting edible food while they were in detention. So this is really the first hot, nutritious meal that they had had in a long time. What I would do with the help of Eddie, when I would go for about a week, once a month during the winter. I would take 1 or 2 families back to my hotel with me, get them a hotel room, then take them shopping for all new clothes. You can see this little girl, her shoes have no shoelaces. That's something that ICE would do for everybody, is take away their shoelaces. So I would take them for all new clothes, medicines if they needed it, things that they might need to travel with, toiletries, and some toys if they were little children. And then take them to get dinner, which we would bring back to the hotel, because they always wanted to go back to the hotel room where they could close the door, lock it, take a hot shower, have privacy for the first time, possibly in a couple of years. It was a joy for me to be able to provide this for, unfortunately, only 1 or 2 families each time. This is what Eddie presented me with the first day I met him in Phoenix, in one of the rooms at the synagogue. He said, we have a lot of boxes of stuff that's been sent. They need to be sorted. And so that's what I did on my first day. And then this is Eddie a couple of years ago, loading up a pickup truck to deliver supplies to the churches. As at this point, nearly every day at a church, 1 or more churches, hundreds of people were being dropped off, and too bad. Figure out how to feed them, how to shelter them, and then how to get them to the bus station and on to their sponsors. It was left to volunteers to do, and Eddie did it. What I did eventually, and this is, I will start talking about Grannies Respond now. Grannies Respond is an organization that sort of grew organically out of this problem of people being put on buses at the border to go to their sponsors. All of these people released by ICE had sponsors in the United States, but some of them might be in Maine. They might be on a bus for 4 days. So they left the border with hopefully some supplies, but eventually the supplies would run out. And very often, or almost always, there were small children in the family. So imagine traveling on a bus 24 hours a day with no food, with no toiletries, with nothing to do with a 3-year-old. These are students from Manhattan College in Riverdale. They're social justice, they're majoring in social justice students. This girl on the left is Ireland. Twigs is her name. She came with me to the border in one of our trips. She arranged for the students to do, and this is something that a synagogue could do, a social action committee could do, students could do, organized a drive to collect the items that would be needed to make packets for travelers on the buses. We decided that on 9/11, in 2019, I believe this was, that it would be an appropriate project for that date for the students to gather and have a bagging event where they took everything they had collected and made, this is my friend Rona, who is on tonight, also helping making bags in her living room. This is underwear. You have no idea how grateful people were after a few days on the bus to have clean underwear, clean socks, toiletries. We collected a lot of that. These are toiletry packages, food packages, and the students loaded up my car. And I had read on the Grannies Respond website that Columbus, Ohio desperately needed to get a Grannies Respond group together. So let me explain what that is. It is a group of volunteers who go to the bus station, just like Andrea was talking about what she's doing in Brownsville, only they do this across the country. It happens organically. It's not really planned, but they do, for the most part, and I've been involved with a few cities, get very organized in collecting, storing supplies for travelers, and then watching a particular website to follow the buses that are coming up from the border on different routes to different areas in the country. And they're there to meet the buses. And we'll use Columbus, Ohio as an example, because that's where I spent many, many days sitting in the bus station, waiting for a bus to come in. People would get off because they either had to transfer buses or they had to wait a few hours before the bus was leaving again. We would get them a hot meal if there was time. We would give them supplies for the trip. As things got cold, I had a knitting circle in Riverdale, and a member of the knitting circle is on this call today, so that I could bring hats and scarves and gloves, because these people were freezing and the buses were freezing. The buses ran their air conditioning very high. The kids were freezing. So blankets were very welcome also, if we could come up with blankets. And so, this is just a little girl in the camp. I just wanted you to see how precious what is in those bags was to someone who's even 2 years old. What's in that bag, she's holding like gold. This is a immigration law firm in Columbus, Ohio. You can see the boxes on the right. The law firm donated a room where the Grannies Respond group could collect, sort, and store supplies. This is another thing that a congregation could do, a social action committee could do, is collect items needed by these people, and we can put a list. We can put a list out in an email of what is appropriate for these travelers, so that volunteers would come and create these gallon baggies, one of toiletries, one of food, often toys for the children. In the wintertime, these people are traveling from a very warm climate at times to a place where it's snowing, and they need it, in the best of circumstances, coats, although those were hard to come by. But this immigration law firm donated a room for us to do that. This is another group up here in Westchester that held a coat drive during one winter. And we sent these coats to Arizona, Eddie. You'll see a picture of you in a minute. This is knitting, scarves, hats. Very much needed and very doable for a group up here that would be very much welcome in down south. This is Indivisible in Westchester County, along with the Riverdale Temple, had a coat drive. And this is where the coats ended up, in Arizona. There's Eddie in the middle. And Rabbi Shmuley Yanklowitz, who is the rabbi of the synagogue Temple Chai. And Eddie, I believe that's the intern of that year, helping unpack the coats that we sent from the Bronx, which would be distributed to the churches and to the migrants who were traveling north. The other thing that happens regularly, and Angie mentioned it, or I mentioned it to Andrea, is that Team Brownsville, and that's where this picture is taken. Team Brownsville has a number of volunteers from Brownsville or from areas around Texas, Dallas, Houston, Austin, smaller towns. come down to Brownsville, which is right on the border, and use donated funds to go shopping for, as you can see, all of the supplies that will be needed to get on a bus to travel for 4 days as you leave the border and move on to your sponsor. This is another very happy picture. This is after the administration change. This is in Matamoros, Mexico. These are people who have been living in the camp with their papers from the Immigration Service getting ready to cross into the United States. So these were among the first waving their papers happily, finally leaving. I did not put pictures in here of the camp, which was a disgusting place to live. This is inside the bus station in Brownsville, welcoming. A lot of times, in my experience with the Grannies program, the travelers do not believe you. They don't trust you. They don't believe that you're giving them something for free. So anything that can be in Spanish, or at this point in other languages as well. We're seeing travelers coming from Haiti, coming from Africa, Cameroon, India, as Eddie said. So there are a lot of languages spoken. It's not only Latin America, but being friendly is extremely important. And this is at the Brownsville bus station. This is a group of Texans who are there simply to welcome the people who were leaving the camp in Matamoros and crossing the border into the United States. I thought it was beautiful. This is Team Brownsville. Another one of the founders on the left, I believe that's Sergio with his mask on. And they were providing hot coffee and food and snacks. And of course the kids were excited, but also the help that Andrea was talking about, helping them get their bus ticket and figure out how to operate the bus system to get themselves all the way to where they were going. All of this takes money, and you can donate to Team Brownsville on their website, teambrownsville.org. They're a 501c3 organization, and it's easier for them to have the funds to go buy what they need. But I know they also welcome boxes of coats or whatever. These are two of my families now we're back in Phoenix, loaded up now with all of the stuff that I've bought them the night before. And then I would bring them to the bus station and they're getting ready to get on their bus. One family was going to North Carolina. The young man in the plaid shirt was going to meet his wife, who was in Virginia, who had his baby daughter, who he had never met. So he was trying to figure out how to get from North Carolina to meet his daughter. This is the Columbus bus station. Again, waiting for their bus. I gave this little girl a doll, which made her happy. And the happiest I've seen everywhere is when there's food and particularly fresh fruit. So this little boy, I had given him a truck, a little toy truck, but he dropped it on the floor when he saw I had tangerines and he took that instead. That was the first thing he wanted. And his father was happy that he was happy. And there they go getting on their buses. We're back in Brownsville now. A lot of groups of women in Texas have been making these dolls or teddy bears or blankets or pillows and giving them out down in Brownsville for the trip. There is a woman, Melba Salazar Lucio, who is a professor at one of the universities in Brownsville. She also started a school in the camp in Matamoros, which we went to and helped the Sunday morning school. And she instilled in hundreds of children a love of reading and a love of books. So a lot of people will send books. That's another thing you can do, Spanish books for children, or books that are in Spanish and English, because that helps them learn English. The children are drawn to books because of Melba and her school. So they all want to read, or they want their parent to read to them. And that's another project that could be done up here with great effect on the children. One short story, this family that was an intact family, which is rather unusual. The father and mother and 3 children were living in the camp in Matamoros, and the kids were attending Melba School in the encampment. They recently sent a picture to Andrea, I believe it was to Andrea, of the 2 younger girls getting on a yellow school bus in San Francisco. So they made it to the United States. The kids made it to public school, which is spectacular, and were prepared because Melba had them reading and had them learning English from the moment they got to the camp. Here is Andrea putting new shoes on a little baby boy. Again, they come with nothing, and ice takes away many things. What they have, if they've lived in the camp for a long time, has become a wreck. They walk in mud. It's either very hot or raining, or it's just horrible circumstances. So what they need is new clothes or used clothes that are clean and sent down to the border, and shoes and coats. So I know Andrea would chime in and say shoes for sure. A lot of the children and parents need. Here we're down in Brownsville still. This little girl's getting all new clothes. People who have just crossed the border from the camp. This is Melba, the teacher, one of the teachers who started the school. And again, very intent on teaching the children to read and teaching them English while she teaches them to read. Mama, this is again Brownsville, Texas. These are the pillows of love that women have been making. This may be Melba's mother is making thousands of these red pillows of love to take on the buses. They travel for 4 days. Again, reading, picking a book and picking some toys to take with them on their trip, and getting on the bus to start their journey north, everyone holding their papers. And finally, up here in New York, Grannies Respond group is called Team TLC NYC. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on the internet. This is one of the volunteers meeting a bus. And by the time the travelers are getting to New York, very often we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be on which bus. Not names of people, but we know that there are, 6 men, 12 women, and 4 children, and that they were supplied with XYZ as they traveled, but they're in need of children's Tylenol or clothing or food. They're out of food at this point, and they're not getting off in New York. They're traveling further. So you can volunteer with Team TLC NYC through Facebook, or you can help us supply. I've been working with them up here in New York now. We created an Amazon wish list, which you will find on Amazon. Look for Team TLC NYC. I may have that backwards, Team NYC TLC. That you will find there the items that are needed to supply these families as they continue with their travels. So even at Port Authority, which is by no means the same as the smaller bus stations around the country, we are managing to meet the buses and supply the migrants. This is, again, her name is Ilsa, this volunteer, with a sign and a badge so that she will be trusted a bit as we approach people and say, we're here to help you in Spanish or in English or in French at this point. And some of them do not believe us. They are so traumatized by what they've been through that they don't believe anybody is there to help them and will not talk to us. But for the most part, grannies around the country have been able to help thousands of people survive and succeed in their trip north. That's Grannies. That's my presentation. I will stop sharing my screen. I'm not muted. Okay. Holly, do you want to?
You're going to introduce Bertha now, I think, right?
Oh, Bertha, I'm sorry, my goodness. I got involved. I was taken right back to the border and got involved in my head.
Oh.
Next comes Bertha Maria Rodriguez. She is a civic-minded attorney and client advocate. She's an attorney consultant to the Community Resource Center, where she that's up here in Westchester, where she passionately serves underrepresented populations to ensure equitable representation. She is especially passionate about the laws of dual nationality, immigration, and naturalization. And before I turn it to Berta, I want to second that. I also went to the immigration courts in Texas and saw what happens to masses of people who have had no legal representation. They haven't got a chance in the world of being granted asylum. So her work is invaluable. There are pro bono lawyers down in Texas, but not nearly enough for the thousands who need them. So bless you, Berta.
Thank you. Very humbled to be given this opportunity to speak to you about the work that we do. As Marty said, I am attorney consultant for the Community Resource Center in Mamaroneck, New York, CRC for short. And the CRC is a nonprofit organization that offers various services to people in the Westchester and surrounding towns. The services include daycare services, food pantries, social services, education services, eviction prevention services, and the program that I belong to, which is the Community Justice Program, is the one that provides immigration and legal services. We are a very small program. It's one attorney, myself, and a paralegal and a legal assistant. And we recently have a volunteer attorney. And our role involves children when they get to the New York area. I represent the minors in family court and immigration court. And most of the cases involve children seeking immigration relief in the form of special immigrant juvenile status and or asylum. Most of our clients are running from traumatic experiences, ranging from kidnapping by gangs, rapes, extortion, having been witnesses to homicide. And this information is very crucial to present to the judges to be able to obtain the relief. Some of our clients are coming from Central America, and they have lost friends, family members. Some of them have lost parents, and we provide a representation free of charge. And the CRC has a fund which provides for legal fees. The children are coming from impoverished regions, and some of them did not get to continue school and had to take on working to help provide for their families. So when they get here, a lot of them need assistance with learning English, sometimes high school equivalency, tutoring. Some of them may be in a lower grade, but they're older, so they don't feel comfortable in high school. So the drop-off rate is sometimes high. One of the biggest things that I would like as a lawyer to have is social workers, caseworkers, because it really helps with the situation. Some of these stories are very, very sad. So it would be very, very helpful to have someone to be able to navigate the struggles that the children have to go through. Another thing that with the CRC that you can help is by providing your time or simply by donating. We have, even though we provide pro bono legal services, we do have legal fees that have to be covered. For example, I have a trial that's coming up in 2 months, and the child witnessed a murder, and we need expert services. And for example, the fee has been reduced to $3,000, but it's still it's a hectic fee for a family that doesn't have much. Another thing is even if the children get approval, for example, if they get the approval for special immigrant juvenile status, it takes them 3 to 4 years just to be able to obtain their green card. And with asylum, I think somebody mentioned it before, sometimes we have cases where it's taken 5 to 6 years just for us to get to the trial, to get close to being able to get a favorable outcome. The work is heavy. Some of the stories are very heartbreaking. But it is my call to continue to assist as much as I'm able and be a voice for those that cannot otherwise speak for themselves. And this is why I do the work that we do. And I really think that we need more lawyers and to do this work pro bono, but it's definitely not enough lawyers to do this. So thank you so much. And this is all I have to say for now.
Bertha, before you go away, I have a question for you. In addition to financial contributions, which clearly is the most urgent, could you use volunteer social workers, volunteer psychologists, volunteers who are native Spanish speakers or other languages to help take down the stories for the lawyers to then read through? How can people help you other than financially?
Yes, definitely psychologists. For example, the fee that I mentioned, the $3,000, it's for my psychologist just to prepare the briefs that I will need for trial. So definitely volunteer psychologists, social workers. Sometimes some of the children, they're very hard to just tell me the story that I need to present to the court. So it takes many tries sitting with them and just getting them to be comfortable with telling us the story. So the paralegal and the legal assistant, they take their time to finally get me an affidavit that I can then present when we're in family court. So definitely that would be helpful. As for second language speaking, we do have interpreters. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to speak both languages, but obviously that works too. And we also do have clients from India. So that's one thing, and we're gonna start helping clients from Haiti pretty soon. Well, we're gonna start advocating also. So definitely other languages help as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Holly, you're muted.
Thank you, Bertha. Sorry about that. So we have 2 questions so far, but if anyone has a question after we ask these 2, feel free to take a moment and ask them verbally, please, and speak out. Ruth asked, she says MPP was bad, but at least you can hear me, right?
Yes.
For some reason I don't see, but it's fine. Okay. MPP was bad, but at least people did have a file made and a court date. Is Title 42 worse? People are not processed at all and simply left to go back and try again. Who would like to answer that question? Eddie?
I mean, having a lawyer here, I'm pretty sure a lawyer could best explain it. So I'm going to go ahead and have the best legal expertise take a clearer definition. So Bertha.
Bertha, before you talk, I'd just like to add some of experience that I've heard about Title 4. I believe it revolves around Title 42. There's a man who's been working at the border for years named Josh Rubin. He runs an organization called Witness at the Border. And what he's been doing really is witnessing. He travels the border from Brownsville all the way to California, and has discovered many things going on that we did not know about until he was there and took pictures. And one of the things he's finding now are horizontal flights that what ICE used to do was take people out of detention and deport them, usually now down to Guatemala. But what he's finding is ICE is taking people who are trying to cross into the US and horizontally flying them to California, and then not deporting, it's called expelling them down into Mexico, using Title 42 as the reason that they're doing that. And the reason that they're going through California has to do with Mexico, that the county across from Brownsville, which is in the eastern part of Texas, will no longer accept migrants being expelled into Mexico. So ICE has had to find areas of Mexico that will accept people being expelled from the US. And so now there are these horizontal flights going. They're flying across Texas, across Arizona, and into California. They may also be stopping, I know they at times stop in El Paso. They may also be stopping in Arizona, I don't know. And I don't know what the difference is. Bertha may be able to help us with the difference between deporting people or expelling people, but they're now calling it expelling them, which I think means they had no chance to make any case at all. But we'll see. Bertha.
Yeah, so it's the same thing, right? They're being sent back, and so
Yeah.
legally, it doesn't make a difference. The problem though is that then now they may have in their added to their case an expedited deportation, which then makes it even more difficult when you're trying to present the case. And sometimes they don't even know that they were processed, so it makes it difficult. In regards to the MPP, there were people that made it to MPP, but there are people that are in Mexico that were not even able to register. So are sort of in a limbo because they were coming to seek asylum, and they were sent back to Mexico, but we're not giving a case number. So then, so there's a host of people that are stuck in that limbo that we still don't know what's going to happen. So in Title 42, I think they did an exception for the children.
Yes.
So, so that we were still able to see some of the children coming in. And then what was happening was that some families were sending their children ahead and staying in Mexico. So to me, both of them are equally as bad. I mean, it's just another fancy word to keep people from safety.
You may be interested to know, I have recently heard of a number of cases where ICE is giving people papers, but on the papers, there is no court date. There is no phone number in order to contact this person. So they're sort of being given blank papers and allowed into the United States. These are people who are traveling now to their sponsors in the United States with no way for the Immigration Service to track them. They don't have a phone number for them. And the person has no court date, no asylum hearing. So what this is supposed to be, I don't get it.
So, and that's actually happened to some of our clients that we have at the CRC. And then, so basically having an attorney helps because, then I'll be able to submit an affirmative asylum, and then get this person a number and just get the process started. But if you don't know this and you're just given this paper, it's in another limbo, and then you're never really getting anywhere in the line to be able to, to adjust yourself to a permanent status. So that's also sort of, it's not helpful, but it's been happening, there was a case that just, the Nis Chavez case, where people that were giving these notices without a proper notice can then terminate the proceeding. But then if you terminate proceedings, then you maybe don't have a way to have a relief. So it's not always a great thing either.
Uh-huh.
I have one more question. Kelly, who I think just signed off, said, such fantastic work. Asylum cases are currently badly backlogged and lasting 4+ years before resolving. How can we push for both the speed up of the adjudication process and additional supports for asylum seekers, right to work support, etc.? Who wants to take that one?
So I'll just take so one of the things with the asylum also, that one of the changes that was made recently was that in order to receive work authorization, the person had to have an asylum petition submitted for at least 365 days, which basically equals a year from the moment that you sent the asylum application. So so that there is a pending adjudication right now in court where people that are members of CASA or ASAP don't have to wait the full year. So that's one of the things that's helping up with the process, and at least for them to be able to get work authorization. So I think a lot of it just depends on talking to the politics. It goes back to politics. So I think definitely something that our politicians could help push. There is pending reforms that we're hoping will get passed, and I think it all boils down to that. I think that's the only way. Just advocacy surrounding our politicians.
I could add to that a little commercial maybe for this organization, which is a fantastic advocacy organization made up of very high-level attorneys and professors and people who know who they're talking to and what they're talking about. I'm the boots on the ground, but I was so impressed with the people at the meetings. at one meeting that we had, Congressman Jamal Bowman was there. I think he was here tonight, but I think he may have signed off. I don't know if Ruthie is still here. She was signed on also. He wanted to talk to me when he heard my stories up at the border, because he is serving on the White House task force on just these issues. And it started really with the children who are unaccompanied minors coming across with phone numbers of family members and still being put into foster care or put into group homes, even though they have family to go to. So that moved me on to Ruthie, who is his policy advisor for immigration issues. Ruthie, if you're here still, let us know, because you might be able to answer where we are on the legislation. I know the point I'm making, and the reason I called it a commercial, is that this administration is working on this. It's not just words. They are actually trying to figure out what I call turning around an aircraft carrier in 10 minutes. You know, this is a gigantic mess, and it is going to take time to fix. And unfortunately, people are stuck, and particularly children, in the middle of the mess. But they are working. They are truly working on it. It's not just words.
Congressman Bowman literally just signed off. It's such a shame that we missed him by about a minute. But we do have Rajiv Sakura, and she will follow up, she said in the chat box. So
Great. Okay.
Eddie is about to sign off. Does anyone have a question for him on this call before he leaves?
I do. Eddie, do you still have a wish list? Can people look up Arizona Jews for Justice and send you what you need down at the border through your wish list?
Eddie, send that to me and I'll send it out with all the information for everybody.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eddie. So everyone, it's 8:45. So we just want to end the evening with a few ways to, I mean, you've heard a lot of great ways to help. Every speaker has summarized them, but we want to go over a few more. And then I want to introduce someone who will tell you how to help right here in our town with a great postcard effort. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. You see that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so there are a lot of ways, you know, Marty talked about welcoming families from the border at Port Authority. It's really easy to do. That's through Grannies Respond. They need help several times daily, and it's a really beautiful way to make a difference. All of these efforts, by the way, I will send all of you this in email, so you don't need to be scribbling notes. Don't worry about that. And Bertha mentioned, you know, she's right here where I live in Mamaroneck, and they need help. Like she said, with social workers, they need tutors, they need donations to help children from the border that are here with legal expenses, for example, or even behind the scenes. So you can contact Janet, who I also think is here. Janet, hello, I think you're still here. And I'll send you this information too. And as Marty's mentioned, and every speaker has mentioned several times, there are collections and fundraising drives for children from the border. There are children from the border living right here at the Abbott House. Whoop, jumped up a slide. There we go. There are children from the border living right here in Westchester at the Abbott House, and also at the Children's Village in Dobbs Ferry. The Abbott House is in Irvington. And I will send you details on their wish lists and their needs as well. You can also, like Eddie said, you can donate to Arizona Jews for Justice. They have a wish list. And if you can go to Texas, Andrea is your contact. Andrea, Team Brownsville will welcome you with open arms. And you can see some of those opportunities right here on the slide. So those are just a few of the ways mentioned this evening. Okay, and I'm back. And I see Marty. Do you see me?
I see you, yes.
I see you on my screen every time I speak.
You see me big, I'll mute myself.
You should just
That'll-
like mouth the words I'm speaking. And as you all know, many of you here on this call are involved with WJCI, and we're urging elected officials to support programs and legislation on behalf of asylum seekers. Jamal Bowman was here. We've had a lot of congressional aides on this call. They're all very engaged with us. We feel very fortunate to be working with these fabulous people who listen. They really listen and they really engage. You too can make calls, you can write letters, you can meet with your local legislators directly. And because we must tell Congress to end Title 42, which you've all heard about, and the misuse of public health laws, and restore the right to asylum. You can head to WJCI.org. We actually have a form where you can insert your information, and we'll help you alert all of your congressmen about this important issue. And another way to advocate is to write postcards to our local legislators. So I want to introduce my friend, my dear friend, Ruth Gare from Neighbors for Refugees. And she's going to tell you about a really great initiative right here in Westchester that you can take part of to help change. Ruth.
Hi. I'm going to be really quick because this is simple. And every month, Neighbors for Refugees has an action where it doesn't even have to be postcards, but I make postcarding really easy for you. It's a little bit like what we do in Indivisible, but it's also a little different. So what I do is I'm blown away by what I hear tonight and what all of you are doing, but we need to advocate. We need our legislators to know what we're doing, what we want them to do. So what I do is I compile addresses and lists of the elected officials and committee leaders here and in Washington who are involved in making the decisions on these issues. And then I make a script for writing a postcard, make a call, a tweet, an email, whatever you want to do. But I also make it easy by providing postcards that you can pick up at my house. So a packet of postcards means come by, pick up 7, 8, 9 postcards with mailing labels and the script and the background and the information for what are we asking them to do? What do we want? And there are clearly things we want. There are clearly things we need to pass. There are clearly things like we want an end to title. We want things to end. We want things to be implemented. So we've got postcards. You can write your own postcards, but these send a message because these are Neighbors for Refugees. We also try to show that we're more than an individual. We're a group. We're a community. We're a lot of people who want change, and we want to help people who are, in this case, coming across the border and need their asylum rights to be respected. So in June, our third Thursday of advocacy, Neighbors for Refugees, will be about this issue. Title 42. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? It's explained. We're going to have postcards. You can pick them up. You can write your own. You can do other things. But every month we do a different action. And this month it will be on this issue of children at the border. So please email me. I shared my email. Holly will share it too, I'm sure. And just email me if you want to pick up postcards or you want to be involved in any way whatsoever and just receive the action sheet. It'll also be on Neighbors for Refugees website. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ruth. And we'll be sharing that with all of you too. And I really urge you to take part in this amazing initiative with Ruth and Neighbors. So it's late. We've had a lot of people on the call tonight. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday night with us. And I want to thank our planning committee, amazing planning committee, including Marty Michael. Thank you, Marty, for moderating, for helping to plan. Terry Toll, Linda Dishner, Jill Ratner, Rita Fredman, Judy Fensterman, and Elaine Merker. Just incredible planning committee. Thank you. And to all our wonderful speakers and local legislators who attended. I want to encourage all of you to do the many things outlined here tonight and check out WJCI for some of these opportunities for other ways to get involved. But we will, like I said, we will send you all of these opportunities. You'll have them in your email tomorrow. And we hope you act. That's it, really. Thank you so much. Thank you, Catherine Parker, who just chimed in. Thank you, Janet.
And thank you,
Thank you,
Holly.
everyone.
Thank you, Holly, for organizing all of this and keeping us all moving and keeping us on track and putting this together in a really efficient, wonderful way. You've been fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Catherine. I see you now. It's so inspiring to have so many inspiring people on here tonight. Have a great week and a lot of food for thought tonight. I think you all know that we can help right from here. We don't have to go down to the border. There's so much we can do. There's so much we can do. So stay in touch with us and we'll do it together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye. Mm.